I'm Geoff from GC2 Photo Club, and in this video I'm going to show you how to make an HDR or high dynamic range image in Photoshop. But first, let's go and take some photos. When you take photos for HDR, what you need are 3 or more images of the same scene that are bracketed at different exposures. That means one shot at the correct exposure for the scene, one shot underexposed, and one shot overexposed, like I have here. If your camera has an auto exposure bracketing feature in its menu, that is the easiest method to get your bracketed shots. In this case I'm using a Canon EOS 5D Mark II, where it's called AEB. I press the menu button here to bring up my menu. I use this button here until I can see exposure compensation AEB. Press that button there to bring up the dialog. I then scroll this wheel at the top here, and you'll see I can scroll along until I've got 2 stops bracketing either side. That's 1 shot 2 stops darker than normal, 1 correct exposure, and 2 stops brighter than normal. I've just set my camera to give me a 2 stops either side automatic exposure bracketing. That's because I think that suits that scene, but be aware that the more contrast in the scene, the more range you need, i.e. you may need 3 stops or 4 stops either side bracketing, or if it's a low contrast scene, you may only need a stop either side to get your HDR effect. To get consistency across the range of images, set the mode to manual on your camera to get an even depth of field. You do this by setting this dial here, which is on P at the moment for program. Just click it onto M and you're now set in manual mode. Make sure that your focus doesn't change during the exposures by focusing manually using your focus ring, or by setting autofocus, allowing the camera to focus, and then switching back to manual so that the focus doesn't change. To avoid a ghosting effect, try to avoid having moving objects in your shots and use a tripod to keep the camera still, as you need them to align perfectly. However, Photoshop is very good at overcoming these problems, and in this case I handheld the camera. You can start this process in Lightroom if you're already in a Lightroom workflow, or you can do the whole thing in Photoshop. Let me show you how to do both of those things. With Photoshop open and a blank work area, select File, Automate, Merge to HDR Pro. Click Browse in the pop-up dialog and navigate to the images that you want to select. Select your images. If your images are already open in Photoshop, click Add Open Files. That's this box here. But in this case I didn't have the images open and I've already selected them, so I won't click this box. Tick or check mark this box here, attempt to automatically align source images. Then click OK to merge to HDR. This can take a few seconds sometimes. When Photoshop has finished merging the images like this, make any adjustments required using the sliders over here, or choose a preset from the drop down menu by clicking on the little triangle to the right of the word default in the preset box at the top of your screen. That's this one here. In this case I'm going to click on the preset Scott 5 here. Using a preset is a good place to start, but I still like to make a few adjustments myself. In this case I'm going to slightly adjust the exposure just to bring out some more shadow detail. When you're happy with your image, click OK in the bottom right hand corner. That's this one here. and the finished file will now be generated. This also can take a little while. When Photoshop has finished generating your image, you can now click Save to save your finished HDR Pro image. If you are in a Lightroom workflow and wish to start the process from there, select your suitable images, like so, and then select Photo, Edit in, Merge to HDR Pro in Photoshop. This will also take a few seconds. If you get this warning come up, just click Open anyway. As you can see, Photoshop is just going through the process automatically. So just sit back and admire Photoshop's work. When Photoshop has finished merging your HDR, just follow the same instructions before with the sliders and the presets over here. As you can see, whether you start the process in Lightroom or Photoshop, it's very straightforward and simple, as Photoshop does all the work for you. Hope you found that tutorial useful. Please go to our website, GC2photoclub.com, for more videos and information. I'm Geoff Cable from GC2 Photo Club. Hope to see you again soon.